The soft hum of the airport filled the air as travelers rushed past each other, dragging suitcases, clutching boarding passes, and checking their phones for gate changes. In the middle of all this chaos walked Maya Brooks, moving at her own calm and unhurried pace. She was dressed simply a tailored navy blazer, crisp white shirt, and dark jeans. There were no flashy logos, no diamond rings, no designer handbag swinging from her arm. To most people, she looked like any other professional woman on a business trip. No one would have guessed she quietly controlled billions of dollars in global investments. Maya liked it this way. She had always preferred blending in rather than standing out. Being invisible gave her space to observe, to think. While others might crave recognition, she had learned long ago that power works best when it's silent until needed. She carried only a sleek leather laptop bag over her shoulder and a slim folder of documents in her hand. Her steps were steady and confident, but not loud. She moved like someone who knew exactly where she was going and why. As she reached her gate, she checked the digital board. Good. It was a short flight, just 3 hours, but an important one. She was headed to meet the board of a European airline to finalize an enormous partnership deal that would shape the next decade of the aviation industry. They didn't know it yet, but her company was prepared to invest over $4 billion into their fleet expansion. Her signature alone could secure their future or collapse. That kind of weight would make most people nervous, but Maya felt calm. She had worked for years to build this level of influence, and she didn't take it lightly. When boarding began, she joined the first-class line, quietly waiting behind a man in a gray suit who kept glancing at his watch. She smiled faintly as she listened to him grumble about slow service. He never looked at her. People rarely did. She was used to that, too. It used to bother her when she was younger, being overlooked, underestimated, but now it had become her secret strength. The fewer people noticed her coming, the easier it was to surprise them when she arrived at the top. As she stepped onto the jet bridge, the warm air from the plane drifted out to meet her. Inside, the cabin was softly lit, quiet, and clean. Maya found her seat by the window and placed her bag carefully in the overhead compartment. She sat down, opened her folder, and began reviewing a final report. Numbers lined the pages, bold and precise. The airline's stock forecasts, projected routes, cost breakdowns, and profit margins all carefully analyzed and organized by her team. To her, these numbers weren't just figures, futures and opportunities, she thought. Of the young engineers the airline planned to hire, the pilots who would train on new aircraft, the small airports that would come alive with new routes. She had the power to make that happen. A quiet, private smile tugged at the corner of her lips as she turned the page. A flight attendant passed by, checking seatbelts, and paused for a moment when she saw Maya's calm concentration. "Can I get you anything before takeoff?" she asked kindly. "Just water, please," Maya said softly, without looking up. Her tone was warm but distant, as if her mind was already miles ahead in another boardroom. As she sipped her water and looked out at the runway lights glowing in the dusk, she thought about how strange it was that no one around her knew who she was. The man across the aisle was talking loudly on his phone about his company's quarterly losses. The couple behind her were whispering excitedly about their honeymoon. To them, she was just another passenger. And yet, somewhere in her phone, sitting quietly in her email inbox, was a document waiting for her approval. A single click from her could move billions of dollars from one place to another, changing lives in ways none of these strangers could imagine. It was almost funny, she thought, how invisible true power could be. Maya leaned back and closed her eyes for a moment, letting the rhythm of boarding announcements fade behind her. She thought about her journey to get here, years of being underestimated, questioned, and tested. She remembered being the only black woman in rooms, full of older men who assumed she was someone's assistant until she started speaking. She remembered the nights she stayed awake until sunrise, building her company from nothing, fueled by quiet determination and the refusal to give up. Now, she could travel anywhere in the world, buy seats on any plane, meet any leader she chose. And still, she preferred to slip through airports unnoticed. A calm figure among crowds who had no idea she could change the future of the very airline they were flying on. Outside the window, the sky was fading from gold to deep purple. The lights of the city twinkled far below like scattered jewels. Maya watched them quietly, her reflection faint in the glass, her expression unreadable. She was here to make history, but for now, no one around her knew it. They just saw a quiet woman with a folder on her lap, and that was exactly how she liked it. What none of them could possibly imagine was how this peaceful moment, this simple flight, would soon explode into a storm that would shake the entire airline industry to its core, all because someone would mistake her silence for weakness. The plane was almost full now. Passengers were settling into their seats, overhead bins snapping shut, and seatbelt clicks echoing softly through the cabin. Maya had finished her report and tucked the folder back into her bag. She gazed out the window, calm and composed, as the sun dipped lower, painting the runway in a soft golden glow. Everything seemed perfectly normal, until it wasn't. The first hint of trouble came as a whisper of movement. Two uniformed security officers appeared at the front of the cabin, walking quickly but quietly down the aisle. Their presence broke the calm like a crack of ice. Conversations stopped. People froze with half-fastened seatbelts. The man across the aisle paused mid-sentence, his phone slipping from his ear. The officers stopped at Maya's row. "Ma'am," one of them said, his voice low but firm. "We need you to come with us." Maya blinked, confused. "I'm sorry." "What? Please gather your belongings," he repeated. "We've been asked to remove you from this flight." Her heart thumped once, hard. Remove her. She thought there must be some mistake. There must be an error, she said calmly. "My ticket is valid. My boarding pass was scanned. I'm in my assigned seat." The officer didn't look convinced, or maybe he didn't care. His face was blank, unreadable. "Ma'am, if you don't come voluntarily, we'll have to escort you." Passengers nearby leaned in, watching, whispering. Judging, Maya could feel their eyes on her. Sharp and curious, like invisible needles. They didn't know her name or her story. All they saw was a black woman being confronted by security. She tried again, still calm, still steady. "I am a paying first-class passenger," she said, showing her ticket on her phone. "There is no reason to remove me." But the other officer had already reached for her bag. "We can discuss this outside the plane," he said quickly. A strange, hollow feeling spread through her chest. She had spent years in rooms where she was underestimated, dismissed, talked over. She thought she had grown past the sting of it. But this was different. This was public. This was humiliation wrapped in silence. The man across the aisle leaned back, arms crossed, smirking slightly like this confirmed something he already believed. No one spoke up. No one asked if she had done anything wrong. The flight attendant, who had offered her water, now avoided her eyes. Maya stood slowly, her movements controlled, precise. She would not give them the drama they seemed to expect. She reached up and took down her bag, her hand steady even though her stomach was twisting. "Very well," she said softly. Her voice didn't shake. The officers flanked her as they walked. Down the aisle, the quiet was deafening. People watched her as though she were a problem being removed, not a person. The whispers followed her like shadows. One woman muttered, "What did she do?" "I don't know," someone answered. "Maybe she's not supposed to be here." That one sentence cut deeper than she wanted to admit. Not supposed to be here. She had spent her entire life proving that she belonged everywhere she went. And still, as she stepped off the plane, the cool air of the jet bridge hit her face. She inhaled deeply, forcing her shoulders not to sag. Behind her, the cabin door shut with a quiet thud. Just like that, she was gone. The officers led her back into the terminal. No one explained why. No one apologized. They simply walked away, leaving her standing alone at the side of the gate like discarded luggage. The same passengers who had ignored her minutes ago now stared through the glass wall of the boarding area, trying to see her from their seats inside the plane. But she didn't look back at them. She kept her gaze forward, jaw tight, eyes distant. She lowered herself into a chair near the window, her bag on her lap, her heart strangely still. Not racing, not broken, just still. She could hear the faint boarding announcements continuing. For other flights, as if nothing had happened, as if she were invisible again. But inside, something sharp had shifted. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about every silent battle she had fought to be seen, every door she had pushed open, every voice that had told her she didn't belong. They had no idea who they had just walked off their plane, and Maya Brooks, calm and quiet as ever, was already thinking about what she was going to do next. The terminal was strangely quiet around her, though hundreds of people moved past. Maya sat in a corner near the huge glass window, her bag resting neatly on her knees, her posture straight as ever. From the outside, she looked perfectly calm. Just another traveler waiting for another flight. But inside, something heavy and cold sat in her chest. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something quieter, something sharper. It was the feeling of being erased. She kept replaying the last 10 minutes in her mind, the firm hands lifting her bag from the overhead compartment. The officer's flat tone, as if she were a problem to be handled. The passengers' blank stares that followed her out like a silent verdict. No one had asked questions. No one had stood up. No one had said, "Wait, are you sure?" They had just let it happen. Maya wasn't new to this feeling. She had lived pieces of it for years. People assuming she was someone's assistant instead of the boss. People talking over her in meetings. People surprised she could afford the car she drove or the house she lived in. She had grown used to swallowing those moments and moving forward. But this was different. This was public. This was a spectacle. She could still hear the click of phone cameras as she walked off the plane. A few passengers had quietly filmed it, their screens glowing like watchful eyes. At the time, she hadn't cared. But now, sitting alone by the glass, she realized what that meant. The moment wasn't just over. It was already spreading. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant, Ava. "Are you okay? What happened? They said you were taken off the plane." Maya stared at the words for a long time before replying. "Yes, I'm fine. I'll explain." Later, she typed the words carefully, even though her hands were cold. Her phone buzzed again. This time a link from Ava. "You're trending. This is already on social media." Maya opened it. A shaky video played silently on her screen. Her own figure standing calmly while two officers stood on either side. Someone had added subtitles. "Black woman removed from first-class seat by security." No explanation given. In the background, someone could be heard whispering, "What did she do?" And another voice replying, "No idea. Probably wasn't supposed to be there." That sentence again. Not supposed to be there. Her jaw tightened. She hadn't said anything during the confrontation because she didn't want to beg for dignity. She already owned. But watching the video now, she felt the familiar heat of quiet fury rise inside her, not the kind that explodes, but the kind that hardens like steel. People were commenting under the video. "Unbelievable. This happens every day. Who is she? Imagine if she's actually someone important. Maya almost smiled at that one. If only they knew. She turned off her phone screen and placed it face down on the seat beside her. The noise of the terminal began to fade back in the rolling suitcases. The boarding calls, the laughter from a coffee shop nearby. All of it felt distant, like a different world. Maya straightened her shoulders. She had a meeting tomorrow with the airline's board of directors. They were expecting to finalize the largest investment deal in their company's history. Her company's $4 billion commitment. And the same airline had just dragged her off one of their planes like she didn't belong there. They had no idea what they had done. She rose slowly from the chair, her expression unreadable, her movements composed. The storm inside her was silent, but it was growing. She walked through the terminal without looking back, each step measured, controlled, deliberate. If anyone saw her now, they would think she was just another business traveler heading to a hotel. But in her mind, she was already making decisions that would ripple across continents. The world still saw a quiet woman who had been humiliated. They didn't see the force she was about to become. And as she disappeared into the soft hum of the airport crowd, the video of her removal was already flying faster than any plane straight, into the heart of the business world that still didn't know her name, but was about to asterisk by the time Maya reached her hotel that evening. The city lights had begun to glow against the deep velvet of night. She slipped silently through the lobby, the glass doors reflecting her calm figure back at her as if nothing unusual had happened. To anyone watching, she looked like a woman who had just stepped off an ordinary flight and was heading to an ordinary business meeting. But the world outside was no longer ordinary as she rode the elevator up to her suite. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She had set it to silent, but the screen kept lighting up with messages, news alerts, and social media tags. She didn't check them immediately. She had learned to never react from emotion, only from clarity. In her room, she placed her bag on the desk, removed her blazer, and stood by the window. Far below, the streets were alive with motion and noise. Inside her room, it was quiet enough to hear her own breath. She picked up her phone and finally opened the news. It had begun. The video from the plane had gone viral. Millions of views. In just a few hours, dozens of hashtags were trending. People were debating what they had seen, some expressing outrage, others doubting her, others simply curious. But somewhere, buried in the comments, the truth had started to leak out. Her name is Maya Brooks. She's the CEO of Nova Equity Group. Wait, isn't that the investment firm that owns shares in half the airlines? She manages billions, literal billions. Maya scrolled slowly as screenshots of her company's profile appeared. Her photo from Forbes covers, headlines from old interviews. Suddenly, the public perception shifted. The quiet woman who had been walked off. A plane was no longer a mystery. She was power. Within minutes, the story jumped from social media to global news networks. Breaking banners flashed across screens. Black CEO removed from plane holds $4 billion investment in same airline. Commentators scrambled to piece the story together. Anchors spoke in hushed voices as if discussing something dangerous. The contrast was jarring. The image of her standing calmly as security flanked her. And then her smiling confidently in a crisp suit on magazine covers. The world gasped. Investors began to panic quietly in private chat groups and phone calls. Traders whispered about what would happen if she pulled funding. Airline executives, still unaware of the storm, were finishing their dinners when their phones began to explode with alerts in boardrooms across time zones. Her name suddenly felt like thunder. Meanwhile, Maya sat cross-legged on the hotel couch, scrolling through the chaos with the same serene expression she had worn all day. She didn't speak. She didn't post anything. She didn't respond to the dozens of journalists requesting. Statements. Her silence was louder than any reply. She thought about the irony. All day, she had been invisible to those passengers. They had seen only what they expected, a woman who didn't belong. And now they were all seeing what they had missed. She wondered if the man across the aisle, the one who had smirked as she was removed, was seeing her face on the hotel TV right now. Realizing who he had watched being escorted away like a trespasser, she felt no satisfaction in the thought. Only stillness. Her assistant Ava called. Maya answered this time. "They know," Ava said, without even saying hello. Her voice was trembling with a mix of anger and awe. "They all know who you are now. It's everywhere. The airline stock is already slipping." "I expected that," Maya said softly. "They're asking for a statement from you. Should we draft something?" "Not yet," Maya replied. "Silence speaks louder right now." She hung up gently and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And the truth was that people had treated her as if she didn't matter because they didn't know who she was. Because to them, dignity had to be earned with a title. She was going to remind them that dignity belongs to everyone. Outside her window, the city sparkled like a map of possibilities. Inside her, the decision was already taking shape. She had power not just to protect herself, but to send a message that would echo far beyond one flight. And the world was now watching her every move. Holding its breath, morning sunlight filtered through the hotel curtains like pale gold silk. The world outside was already buzzing, taxis honking, phones ringing, new headlines flashing across screens. But inside Maya's suite, everything was still. She sat at the edge of the bed, dressed in a simple black dress, sipping coffee slowly. Her phone face down on the nightstand. She had barely slept. Not because of stress, but because her mind had been working. Quietly and relentlessly. Like the smooth hum of an engine, on the table lay a stack of printed reports, projections, balance sheets, equity agreements. They were documents she knew. By heart, she had read them dozens of times over the past months as she prepared to finalize the airline deal. She knew every figure, every signature, every promise. $4 billion. That number had echoed in her mind all night. It was more than just money. It represented trust. It represented her company's future, the jobs of hundreds of employees, and the expectations of her board. Pulling out wasn't a small choice. It was a thunderbolt, and yet the decision was no longer complicated. It had crystallized, clean and sharp, the moment they escorted her off that plane, like she was disposable. Her assistant Ava arrived just after 7, breathless from rushing. She froze when she saw Maya sitting so calmly. "You look peaceful," Ava said carefully, setting down her laptop. "I am," Maya said. "I know what we're going to do." Ava hesitated. "The board is nervous. They want to know if we're still signing the partnership today." Maya turned her gaze from the window to Ava's face. Her eyes were steady, unblinking. "No," she said simply. Ava blinked. "You mean delay it?" "I mean end it." Maya replied, "We're withdrawing our full commitment. All $4 billion. Silence filled the room like thick smoke. Ava stared, speechless. "That will send shockwaves through the market," she whispered. "Yes," Maya said quietly. "They should feel it." She rose, smoothing her dress, and walked to the desk. Her movements were slow, graceful, like someone performing a ritual. She opened her laptop and joined the emergency board meeting scheduled for this morning. 1. By 1, her directors appeared on the screen, seasoned men and women in sharp suits, their faces pale and tense. The chairman spoke first. "Maya, are we going ahead with the airline deal?" "The press is circling like vultures." "We are not," Maya said without hesitation. A ripple of shock crossed their faces. She continued, her tone calm but cutting through the room like glass. This company has built its reputation on principles, respect, accountability, excellence. Yesterday, that airline showed none of them. They removed me from their plane without reason, without dignity, and without apology. If they can treat a partner this way, imagine how they treat those with no power at all. One board member tried to interrupt. Maya, this deal, she raised a hand gently, and he fell silent. I will not allow our name to be tied to theirs. She said, we are withdrawing the full $4 billion investment, effective immediately. We will redirect those funds to Horizon Air, who have requested new capital for their Clean Fleet program. They respect their passengers. They respect people. There was a pause, not of resistance, but of awe. Slowly, one by one, the board members nodded. Not just because they agreed, but because they trusted her. Then it's done, the chairman said finally. We stand with your decision. Good, Maya said softly. Issue the statement in 1 hour. When the meeting ended, she sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of the decision settle like dust after an earthquake. $4 billion, gone from one company's future and about to ignite another's. She felt no fear, only clarity. The airline had treated her like she was invisible. Now they would feel how powerful invisibility could be because it allowed her to strike without warning. Maya stood and looked out the window again. Somewhere out there, executives were still sipping coffee, still confident, still clueless that the ground beneath their company was about to crack. They would find out soon enough. Asterisk the news hit like a THUNDERCLAP. At 9:03 a.m., the press release went live. Aurora Capital withdraws $4 billion investment from Skyreach Airlines, citing breach of corporate values and ethical standards. Within minutes, the message spread across financial networks, social media platforms, and breaking news banners. Phones began ringing in offices across the country, screens flashing red as Skyreach's stock price plummeted like a stone thrown into deep water. In Skyreach's glass-walled headquarters, panic erupted. The CEO, Richard Langford, had been in a meeting about fuel cost projections when his assistant rushed in, pale and breathless. She shoved a tablet into his hands. Read this, she whispered. His eyes scanned the announcement and color drained from his face. $4 billion. His voice cracked on the number. He pushed back his chair so violently it screeched against the polished floor. Get legal, get PR. Now, within seconds, alarms were sounding, not fire alarms, but the human kind. Executives shouting into phones, assistants sprinting down halls, doors slamming, printers spitting out urgent memos. On the trading floor, the numbers bled. Skyreach's stock lost nearly 15% in the first hour alone. Investors called, furious and frightened, demanding answers that no one had. In a corner office on the 32nd floor, the chief financial officer sat frozen, staring at a spreadsheet. The company had been relying on that for $1 billion infusion to refinance its debt and launch a long-delayed expansion program. Without it, half their planned routes would collapse. The creditors would smell blood. Where did this come from? One director shouted over the conference call. We had a signed commitment. She says she's withdrawing over a values conflict, someone replied, voice shaking. Richard slammed his fist on the table. Values conflict. This is about the incident on the plane. That was nothing. A minor inconvenience. But deep down, a hollow feeling was already spreading. Through his chest, he knew it wasn't nothing. He remembered the reports from the previous night, how security had removed a passenger from a flight, how video of the incident was spreading online. At the time, he had waved it off. Just another PR flare-up, he had thought. Nothing serious. He hadn't known that passenger was Maya Cole. He hadn't known she controlled billions. And now the whole world knew by noon. Major media outlets had picked up the story with fiery headlines. Black CEO pulls $4 billion after being removed from Skyreach flight investment giant, walks away. Skyreach stock tanks, airline faces. Crisis over alleged discrimination incident, public outrage exploded. Social media feeds were flooded with clips of Maya being escorted off the plane, stitched side by side with news of her billion-dollar retaliation. Tickets, call centers were overwhelmed. Travel bloggers posted videos cutting up their Skyreach loyalty cards on camera, in the boardroom. Richard tried to hold his empire together. Sweat glistened on his forehead as he barked orders. We go. Public with an apology. We offer her the seat on the board. Double her equity stake if she returns. Whatever it takes. The PR director spoke softly, almost afraid. Sir, she doesn't want the seat. She doesn't want the equity. She's already investing in Horizon Air. They announced it 20 minutes ago. The words hit Richard like a blow to the chest. Horizon Air, their biggest rival. She's not coming back, the PR director added. Silence settled over the room like ashdot. Richard turned to the window, staring out at the city skyline. Just yesterday, they had been celebrating their upcoming expansion, champagne glasses raised, smiles wide. The future bright. Now the ground was cracking beneath them. He saw the headlines in his mind. The investors abandoning them, the customers fleeing, the employees panicking. It was no longer about one powerful woman and one missed seat. It was about trust, about the world seeing what Skyreach truly valued, or DID and single quotes. And the world had chosen a side. The world was no longer whispering about what had happened. It was shouting. By the next morning, every major news network had the story pinned at the top of their broadcasts. It wasn't just about money anymore. It had become a symbol. Headlines flashed across TV screens and phone notifications like, Wildfire, discrimination costs airline billions, Black CEO's bold stand sends. Industry into crisis from humiliation to power. The Maya Cole story outside Skyreach Airlines headquarters. The sidewalks were flooded with people. Activists held signs that read, Dignity has no price and respect passengers. Respect people. Employees trying to enter the building were met with chants of accountability now. The air was thick with anger, hope, and history, all colliding at once. Television cameras lined the streets. Journalists shouted questions. Former employees came forward with their own stories about unfair treatment, about voices being ignored, about cultures that dismiss certain kinds of people. The company's attempt to paint Maya's removal as a routine security measure had crumbled. People had seen the video. They had seen her calm, respectful demeanor and how she was still treated like a threat. On social media, the storm had grown into a hurricane. Celebrities, politicians, athletes, and CEOs all spoke out. Some posted the now famous clip of Maya standing alone in the jet bridge, suitcase at her side, eyes calm but fierce. Others shared messages like, she didn't lose her seat, they lost their future. Even children and students were talking about her. Teachers played interviews about Maya's career in classrooms, saying, This is how you stand up without screaming. This is how you fight without fists. Skyreach tried to fight back. Their CEO, Richard Langford, gave a carefully worded press statement in front of the company logo, promising a deep investigation and a renewed commitment to diversity. But the public saw through it. His eyes looked tired. His voice shook. People didn't want words, they wanted responsibility. Then came the government, the Transportation Ethics Commission launched a formal inquiry into the airline security practices, demanding flight logs, staff reports, and internal communications. From the night Maya was removed, lawmakers called for public hearings. Shareholders began filing lawsuits, accusing Skyreach of destroying shareholder value through gross mismanagement and discriminatory behavior. Behind the scenes, Board members whispered about firing Richard. Executives quietly scrubbed their social media accounts, fearing they might become the next public target. Through it all, Maya said nothing.